The old Victorian house stood on a hill overlooking the town. Its paint was peeling. The windows were dark eyes. John, a young writer, bought the house cheap. He hoped to find inspiration in its solitude. John spent his first day unpacking. He filled the empty rooms with his belongings. He tried to ignore the feeling of being watched. As evening fell, shadows crept across the walls. The house creaked and groaned. John made himself dinner in the large old-fashioned kitchen. He ate alone, listening to the silence of the house. He told himself it was the wind rattling the windows. He told himself it was the pipes groaning. But deep down, a seed of unease began to grow. There was something not quite right about the house. The first whisper came as John was falling asleep. A soft, indistinct murmur, like voices from a crowded room. He sat up in bed, his heart pounding. Silence. He told himself it was a dream. The next day, John tried to focus on his writing. But the whispers returned. They seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, faint and chilling. They spoke of sorrow, of anger, of something dark and hidden. John tried to ignore the whispers, but they grew stronger. He began to feel a presence in the house with him. Something unseen watched him from the shadows. One afternoon, John heard his name whispered clearly. He spun around, but the room was empty. Fear, cold and sharp, cut through him. He was no longer alone in the house. The whispers grew more frequent, more insistent. They seemed to beckon John, to draw him deeper into the house's secrets. He began researching the history of the house, desperate for an explanation. He discovered that the house had once belonged to a wealthy family, the Blackwood family. They had lived there for generations until a tragic fire claimed the lives of the entire family. Locals whispered that the house was cursed. John dismissed these stories as superstition, but he couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to him. The whispers were growing louder, angrier. He felt a growing sense of urgency, a need to understand. One night John awoke to a cold touch on his arm. He sat bolt upright in bed, his heart racing. Standing at the foot of his bed was a shadowy figure. It hovered there for a moment, then vanished. Driven by fear and a strange sense of compulsion, John began searching the house. He checked every nook and cranny, every closet and cupboard. He was determined to find the source of the whispers, to confront whatever haunted him. Behind a bookcase in the attic, John discovered a hidden door. It was concealed by dust and cobwebs, untouched for years. His heart pounded as he pried open the door. It creaked open, revealing a small, dusty room. The air in the room was heavy and stale. A single window cast a dim light on the dusty furniture inside. A writing desk sat against one wall, covered in papers. John stepped inside, his footsteps echoing in the silence. As he approached the desk, John felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He knew instinctively that he had stumbled upon something important, something that held the key to the house's dark secret. On the desk, John found a leather-bound diary. Its pages were brittle with age, the ink faded. He opened the diary and began to read. The words were written in a spidery hand, filled with despair and anger. The diary belonged to Emily Blackwood, the youngest daughter of the family who had perished in the fire. Emily wrote of her family's descent into madness, of her father's cruelty, of her mother's despair. She wrote of voices she heard in the walls, voices that whispered dark secrets. As John read Emily's words, the whispers in the house seemed to intensify. He felt a cold hand on his shoulder, and he knew that Emily's spirit was close. He felt a surge of sympathy for the young woman trapped in the house's darkness. Emily's diary ended abruptly, the final pages ripped out. John felt a surge of frustration. He needed to know what happened to Emily, what dark secret the house held. John continued his search of the hidden room. He found a loose floorboard in the corner. Beneath it, he discovered a small wooden box. He lifted the box carefully and brought it back to the desk. His hands trembled as he opened the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a human heart. It was shriveled and black with age, but unmistakably human. John recoiled in horror. The whispers reached a fever pitch, swirling around John like a vortex of despair and rage. He felt a presence in the room with him, cold and menacing. He knew then that he had uncovered something truly evil. John slammed the box shut, his mind reeling. He had stumbled upon a gruesome secret, a secret that explained the darkness that permeated the house. He knew he had to escape, to get away from the house and its horrors. As John turned to flee, the hidden door slammed shut. He rattled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. He was trapped. The whispers were all around him, taunting him with his fear. Suddenly the room grew icy cold. A figure coalesced in the shadows, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. It was Emily, her face twisted in a mask of rage and despair. She moved towards John, her spectral hand outstretched. "You found my heart," Emily hissed, her voice a chilling whisper. "Now you will join me in my torment." John stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. He understood now. Emily's father, driven mad by the voices in the walls, had murdered his entire family. He had ripped out Emily's heart, believing it held the key to silencing the voices. "I understand," John said, his voice trembling. "You were a victim, just like the others." Emily paused, her ghostly form flickering. John's words seemed to reach through the veil of her rage. He saw a flicker of sadness in her eyes. "But he was wrong," John continued. "The voices, they're not in the walls. They're in his mind, in his guilt. You can be free of them, Emily. Let go of your anger." For a moment, a look of peace crossed Emily's face. The whispers in the room seemed to quiet, as if even they were listening to John's words. Then, with a sigh, Emily's form began to fade. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Finally, I can rest." As Emily's spirit dissipated into the ether, the hidden door swung open. John stumbled out of the room, his head spinning. He had faced the darkness of the house and survived. John fled the house, never to return. The whispers in the walls were silent now, replaced by an eerie calm. Emily's secret was safe, her torment finally over. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.